into eating out. And then on the right side, we had green cuisine, people for whom the fact we were organic was very important enough to make them purchase our chocolate above other chocolates. We were doing really well in those two groups, but if you added them together, they were about 8% of UK households, so there was a limited size in terms of growth. We said what we really want to do, and we did this work at the time we changed the packaging, is to not abandon our existing customers, because there's nothing more expensive in life than losing your existing customers. So you want to keep those people, don't alienate them. But we do want to open our brand up to new audiences. And we describe them as two clusters, time poor, food rich, and everyday luxury. Everyday luxury, typically empty nesters, slightly higher disposable income, maybe retired, maybe not retired. Read the Daily Mail or the Telegraph. Many years ago, they'd have probably driven a Rover. National Trust members, enjoy spending time with their families, their grandchildren. Not perhaps trendsetters, but they do like good quality things. So if they're having a cup of tea, they'll probably buy Twinings. If they're buying biscuits for their family, they're probably very happy buying Sainsbury's regular biscuits. If they've got people coming around, they may go to M&S to buy some nicer biscuits for that occasion. So we can probably all imagine some of these people. Time poor, food rich are the people, we basically try and profile customers by saying what else do they do in their lives, what other brands do they relate to. And we identified there was a cluster of people, particularly in more urban areas, who were urban professionals really, busy lifestyles, perhaps pre-family, loved brands, earned a reasonable amount of money, spent most of it on eating out and buying their paper cups of Starbucks on the way to work every morning and pret-a-manger. And we worked out exactly who these people are, where they go, what they do, and essentially we stalked them with everything that we do. So we said, well, where do they shop? Let's make sure we've got good displays there. Where do they go for an evening out? Certainly in London, these people were going to listen to Jules Holland and picnic concerts in the park, that kind of thing at Kew Gardens, so we would go and do sampling there. When they travel to work, they travel by tube, many of them. So we did, our first advertising ever was just in London and just on the tube. So we didn't sort of say, well, let's try and appeal to everybody in the UK and do TV advertising. We really focused in on this group and became very meaningful to those people. And targeting is just so important in life. And I remember I was fortunate enough early in my marketing career to go to a course that was at Warwick University, not far from here, and a guy called Professor Peter Doyle. And he basically said that the most important thing in marketing, well, his first point was what is marketing? And it sounds pretty obvious what's marketing, and many of us work in marketing and think we know. There were about 25 of us at the time, sort of aspiring young brand managers, and he sent us all away to try and agree upon a definition. We came back and each presented what we thought were fantastic definitions. He listened very carefully and then got up on the stage and said, thanks for all your work, but actually you're all completely wrong. Your definitions are actually quite hopeless. Marketing, he said, and it's stuck with me ever since, is about encouraging people or making people pay more for your product or service. That's what marketing is actually about. And as marketing people, we should always be looking to give customers the reasons why they may pay more for your product. And too often, marketing is just viewed as promotions and advertising. And if you do marketing well, it's actually about, is my product as good as it possibly can be in taste, in terms of the taste of it or how it performs? Are we presenting it in a desirable way? Do people like the look and feel of it? Can they buy it in the right places? So marketing needs to affect every aspect of the business, not just be the promotion that comes at the end. And pricing is a really important thing. If you're going to make a bar of chocolate like Green and Blacks, you cannot make it for the same price as a bar of Lindt chocolate or Cadbury chocolate. It's a different animal. It costs a lot more in terms of ingredients and the process to make it. Therefore, if you are to have business success, you can't do all of those things and then not charge a fair premium for those items. And in the early days, I remember going to present to the Tesco buyer and about Green and Blacks when we were trying to move on to the main chocolate area. And she said to me, I love your brand and I love your chocolate, but she said the problem is it's the pence per gram is more than my category, as she called it, will accept. And I said, well, how do you know that? And are you sure your shoppers actually are looking at pence per gram when they buy a bar of chocolate? Now, buyers are, because they're sort of measuring everything in that metric, but most shoppers aren't really looking at that level of detail. And she said, I would stock Green and Blacks if it was cheaper, if it was the same price or closer to my own label version. I said, well, actually, we just can't do that. We are a superior tasting product, more expensive to do. Actually, what you need to do is trade your category up by offering something, of better quality. And I said, actually, here's the target audience we're trying to attract. And I showed you earlier how they looked. And then said, rather than just think about the chocolate that these people are buying, think about what else they're doing in their lives. So in the morning, these time-poor, food-rich customers that are shopping in your stores particularly your Tesco Express stores, are probably popping into somewhere like Cafe Nero or Starbucks. They're paying £2.35, whatever it is now, to stand in a queue and then walk out with a paper cup of cappuccino or latte. They are, if they buy a Sunday newspaper, spending nearly £2 for that. If they have a pint of beer in the pub, over £3, glass of wine in a pub probably doesn't taste very good, but it's at least £3.50 these days. So all of a sudden, £1.50 for green and blacks is a bargain. You know, we actually, all the work that goes into it. So the target audience will not think green and blacks is expensive. And if you only ever compare yourselves against your direct competitors, you'll never break the pricing conventions of the category. So clearly you can't charge any price. You have to charge a fair price and justify that price. But if you only follow what the industry has always done, don't be surprised if you can't move the barriers in terms of pricing. Also, as a brand, it's very important to have a bit of attitude. And this was an ad that we ran a couple of years ago, right in the middle of the start of the gloomy recession. There was an announcement the UK cost of living was £13,400. And even in times of all this real austerity, there are some things that, frankly, should still be an affordable treat that are not to be traded down during these times. So having a confident tone, actually being real about where you fit in consumers' lives. Clearly people's decisions around what car they buy, their holidays, their mortgage, all of those things are much more serious and much more important. But actually, £1.79, whilst all this other misery is going on, don't kind of compromise, treat yourself to green and blacks. And not many brands do that, really. Most brands' reaction in a recession is to cut their price because they think everyone wants cheaper prices. And of course, we all enjoy cheaper prices, but it's not a recipe for a successful business if your margins start to slip. The product quality side is really important to what we do. And I would say, I try and think of our marketing budget not as just a sum of cash to spend on marketing, but I look at what can the business invest in overall terms in the product that we sell. So if I had a choice, I would rather we maintained and improved the quality of our chocolate rather than spent millions of pounds on marketing. Because for me, the most important marketing we do is actually the product itself. The guys that founded Innocent Smoothies, which some of you will have hopefully come across as a brand, they have a great saying about their marketing, which is 99% of their marketing actually is in the bottle. It's the product and it's the labeling and the story. And marketing, as we often think of it, is just really the bit that comes afterwards that makes everything else go faster. But the key thing is to get your product right. And as an example of that, we tried to sell Easter eggs for the first time about 7 years ago. And being an organic and ethical brand, we thought we absolutely can't put these horrible big pieces of plastic around the Easter eggs because that's just not very green. So we produced the eggs, put them into the cardboard recyclable boxes, sent them into the stores, and by the time they'd gone through the warehouses and the store staff had literally thrown them onto the shelves, they all became battered. So we had a complete disaster of all our eggs were bruised and battered. And we had customers phoning us up actually saying, thought you should know, because I'm a real fan of your brand, that I was in Waitrose and I spotted that your Easter egg was a bit battered. So anyway, I bought it, but just thought I'd tell you so that, in case you've got a bigger problem. So we had customers being really loyal and telling us about the problem. So the following year, we then said, right, although we don't like the idea of plastic, we need to do it because it's the only way to protect the egg through the supply chain. And there's nothing worse than customers buying battered eggs. We can't have that happen again. So we did that for a few years. Sales grew really well. And then we actually said, to be honest, we're still uncomfortable with all this plastic packaging. So we set ourselves the challenge, how do we get rid of the plastic packaging? Not reduce it, but completely get rid of it. And as always, the best ideas in the business tend not to come from the marketing team. So the lady who at the time was in our accounts department said, I've been watching you guys try to sort this out.